going to play several players, a familiar lineup starting with the exception of Kenny Goins getting the start in place of the big freshman Nick Ward, who's been a little under the weather. He's going to play. Also helped to keep him out of foul trouble. Nebraska going with Webster and Watson in the backcourt. And Jordy Shimunga getting his second start of the season after getting 6 points, 3 rebounds in that victory over Purdue. He's a big, good-looking fella in there. Now we'll see if he can exploit that size against the Spartans.
He did a nice job against Big E Swanigan in that win over Purdue. Didn't stop him, but helped slow him down.
First possession of the night goes to Michigan State, and Fran talked about the fact in the Open that Nebraska has won the last 3 against Michigan State. Not many put together 3-game winning streaks against the Spartans these days.
No, exactly, and they've had great performances in the past when you think about Teron Petway, Siobhan Shields a year ago, and I don't think it's revenge at all. I think Tom Izzo just wants a win. They went 18 days without a win. Think about that. Oh, I like that.
Shimunga.
The
same name as Shimunga Biaka-Batuka, the former Michigan running back. So 2 big fellas scored. Goins first, and then Shimunga. Now Shimunga's got a rebound.
Good-looking young player from Montreal.
Now Watson out front, good shooter. And here's Ty Webster. You know, I saw Ty play, called a game of his a couple of years ago. Big international reputation. But the game was a little fast for him. It was harder to drive and had a lot of problems with turnovers. But boy, has he developed into a really good Big Ten player and rattles in a 3.
Yeah, and I think confidence is the big thing, Reese. A lot of expectations when he arrived here. People like me who know the international game probably expected him to have more of an impact, but this year, outstanding. And this backcourt is really good for Nebraska.
You know, even though the Huskers are only 10 and 11 on the season, they've been very good at home here over the last few years. Got a great crowd advantage, and Michigan State's only 1 and 3 on the road.
They're very loyal here.
Goins has to put it up to beat the shot clock, and Kenny, mask and all, still dealing with that broken nose, has all 4 Michigan State points.
One thing you watch for with Nebraska, lots of pick and roll. They probably run ball screens as much as anybody in the Big Ten, and that's because of the guard play.
And what about Michigan State defending the ball screen? That's been a little bit of an issue for them this year, has it not?
It has been, yep.
Big travel. And Jordy Shimunga, as you take a look at Tom Izzo. Izzo, he just turned 62 years old, birthday on Monday. Of course, you know the great success he's had, 19 straight NCAA tournaments, 7 Final Fours, elected to the Hall of Fame last year. Likely to get his team back in the tournament this year, though they just need to avoid the catastrophic type finish in Big Ten play.
They've got some tough games left. A few on the road. Wisconsin comes to East Lansing.
Joe Lunardi has him as an 8 seed in his latest bracket. Goins lost it on the baseline. Nebraska head coach is 50-year-old Tim Miles. In his 5th season at Nebraska, he's sort of climbed up the coaching tree. He's done a really, really good job here, getting the job in 2012.
Well, he's rebuilt programs wherever he's been, and that's what was expected here. They've had some bad luck with injuries.
There's Shimunga kicking it back outside. Now nice. Shimunga rolling to the bucket.
What you like about that is Webster didn't use the ball screen. He rejected it, and that could cause confusion because Goins was out there thinking he had to help.
Jordy Shimunga has already exceeded his season average. He's got 4 points. He averages just under that. And the freshman that Fran talked about right off the top, Miles Bridges, who since coming back from injury, missing 7 games, virtually missing December, has just been out of his mind.
Yeah, and it's in addition to being a great athlete, he's shooting over 40% behind the arc.
Went 15 and 13 against Michigan on Sunday.
Michigan State wants to push it. Tum-Tum Nairn's as fast as there is in this conference.
Several Spartans waiting to check in at the next dead ball. They're a few seconds away from the first media timeout. Nebraska hasn't missed from the floor yet, hitting their or missed one. They've missed one now after that last miss. They hit their first 3, now 3 out of 4. All the way is Webster.
Well, that's that constant ball screen motion. If they don't get it one side, Reese, they just swing it. Well, Tom Izzo told us today his big men were going to have to defend the screen and roll. Early on, they have not.
Aaron Harris puts up another one. Glenn Watson Jr. He's a younger brother of former Illinois star Dimitri McCamey. His basketball bloodlines. McCamey was a 3-time All-Big Ten player at Illinois.
And those bloodlines go to high school as well. He played at St. Joe's, one of the great programs in the country. Produced a guy named Isaiah Thomas.
Tum-Tum up top, and Bridges loves to dunk, as we will talk about a little bit later on. This time, he wants effectively laying it off the glass.
He loves to score, and if he can dunk it too, he will. That time he took the short 2. Nice feed.
And a terrific drive, shot blocked, foul called. So off to a quick start in the first 5 minutes here in Lincoln, Michigan State, Nebraska, locked up at 9. Michigan State and Nebraska tied at 9. 4 new Spartans about to check in. Is ball screen defense one of the reasons?
I think so. Watch Goins now. He's going to circle him. He's going to go outside to help on the screen on the outside, but Webster rejects the screen. So look where Shimanga is. He's got the running start to the rim, and there's no way Goins can get back. And again, that's what we talked about today with Tom Izzo. Ball screen defense going to be critical.
Yeah, I think it was Bridges that jumped to the outside,
Bridges, yep.
And Goins was in the middle, but the point's the same.
Yep.
And so look at all the new Spartans who are in the lineup now. Matt Van Dyke's in there. Matt McQuaid has checked in. Nick Ward, who we knew we would see plenty of, is in there, along with Alvin Ellis III. The only starter still on the floor is Tum-Tum Nairn. And we'll see plenty of Cassius Winston at point guard later on tonight as well.
They've been interchangeable at the point. Nairn, the better defender to start the games. Cassius Winston, an outstanding freshman, gives them more offensive pop. But that's not what Tom Izzo needs right now, is offensive pop.
Watson makes them both. What do you make of this young class? And a lot of them are gone with the exception of Ward right now in terms of playing at the moment. But this freshman class that Izzo has right now.
Statistically, it's the best he's ever had when you think about it. You know, they're averaging over 45 points a game. They're playing a lot of minutes. Bridges, we expect to go and leave early. Maybe not. You know, he's probably in the 15 to 25 range. But these other freshmen, I think, are 4-year type players, and they've all gotten better. Problem is in this league, hard to win with freshmen who are not one-and-done guys.
The last foul was called on Michael Jacobson as he was trying to handle Nick Ward. Ward coming off 13-point game against Michigan, made all 6 of his shots. Matt McQuaid, until the Michigan game, had been struggling a little bit with his shot, and he's long on his first attempt of the night.
Oh, he had 3 big threes in that game, and nobody happier for Matt McQuaid than his teammates after the game.
Brandon, you talked about it. You just watched the Huskers offense. Is continually run it, screen it, run it, keep it moving.
Yep, exactly. We call it continuity pick and roll, back and forth, side to side.
Ward's asking for it inside. And deflection out of bounds by Watson. Good hands on defense. 17 seconds left on the shot clock. Saturday going to have an ACC college basketball doubleheader. Notre Dame and North Carolina. It's at 6 o'clock Eastern time. Justin Jackson's been playing great. Notre Dame scuffling a little bit. I saw them Monday night against Duke. And then it'll be Kentucky against Florida. All of the games available on the Watch ESPN app. If I said Florida is one of the most undervalued, overlooked teams in the country right now, would you agree or disagree as we get the shot clock down to 5? You got 4 seconds to formulate your thought.
Undervalued. Yes, Michael White's done an incredible job. They have solid backcourt. Kevon Allen, Johnny Bugnu inside, Devin Robinson getting better. Michael White is a young Billy Donovan to me. And I think people in Gainesville feel that way. He's got the same kind of countenance, and maturity that Billy Donovan had as a young coach.
The whole Billy Donovan thing worked out pretty well for Florida.
Sure did. That was a gift by Jeremy Foley as he left to hire Michael White.
And the 3-ball by Alvin Ellis III. Michigan State takes the lead.
He has played really good basketball in his senior year. I was at Minnesota when he had his career high, but not just the points, but the toughness that he's brought to this young team.
He had 20 points in that Minnesota game, and foul is called on the side. You're going to get Taylor for that. It's Evans first.
That was a game that first game of the Big Ten. Minnesota led by 12 at the half. The Williams Arena was rocking and rolling, and Nick Ward was outstanding. Alvin Ellis was outstanding. And when Michigan State won that game, Reese, I said that was championship DNA. And they're struggling this year, but they still have it.
Whenever we get close to this time of year, Bridges scores again. People start looking for Michigan State improvement and impact in the tournament. Last year in the tournament, notwithstanding, they had an excellent team, got upset early. Do you see the same type of upside for Michigan State this year?
I don't. I think they're going to be a tournament team, but without Gavin Schilling and without Ben Carter, two big guys who were expected to be really anchors for this team, Carter, the transfer, you know, they have a lot of warts, and it doesn't mean they can't fight their way into the tournament, maybe win a game, but Tom Izzo were to
hear those guys.
Yeah, if Tom Izzo were to get this team to the Sweet 16, it would be as good a coaching job as he's done in recent years.
Cut along the baseline by Watson. Ball knocked out of bounds. Playing at a quick pace here in Lincoln tonight. Michigan State with a 16-13 lead. We've seen a little bit already from the freshman Miles Bridges. I'll give you one big thing about Bridges. And Scott Van Pelt for that. You know, talked about the shooting percentages. There may be no higher percentage shot in college basketball than a Miles Bridges dunk. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and that's an area of expertise for me as a former player.
Look at this follow dunk against Purdue. Now, we're going to rate these right now.
Yeah.
Give a little personal dunk contest. Time to vote. What are you going there?
I'm giving that an 8.
I wish I had a 9.5. I like the follow.
I'm giving that an 8.
Okay, now what about this one against Arizona? This is a baseline drive. Open, it goes up and under.
No defense. I'm giving that an 8.
I'm giving it a...
I could do that on an 8-foot rim.
I'm giving it a 6. Not that it wasn't awesome.
Yeah.
Miles is a great athlete. Yeah. He can jump high. He's explosive. I want to see something a little more like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like the against Rutgers. And also a high degree of difficulty. Yeah. Because Cassius Winston, Miles said that pass might have been a little bit behind him. I'm giving it.
Oh yeah,
I'm giving it like 19? A 19.
That's cheating.
10 plus 9.
That's cheating.
Is there a better dunker in college basketball than him?
I'll tell you, there's not. There are some highlight guy dunkers, but you know, my Nerf basketball court at home in my bedroom when I was a kid, I could do some of that stuff.
You're the master, I'm told, of teaching the goofy-footed jump shot and the goofy-footed layups in the lane, right?
The European stuff.
Yeah. You don't just go over there and waste your time preparing draft reports. You're over there ready, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? There are so many good international kids in college basketball. We're watching Jordy Shimanga tonight, young man from the Congo by way of Montreal.
Fran, something that potentially could be significant for Michigan State. They can't afford a lot of foul trouble inside. Kenny Goins just went to the bench with his second foul. A little over 8 minutes into the first half. Michigan State with a 3-point lead. Bridges has been very good offensively in the early going. And I think they're going to get Shimanga for the foul.
Well, and the strategy there by Tim Miles was we got Goins on the bench. Let's see if we can go at Nick Ward, who cannot get in foul trouble, and that time a little extracurricular activity by the big freshman.
Goins got him off to a good start, making a couple of buckets. Now Ward has been a little under the weather, plays some heavy minutes for the remainder of the first half. I'm sure that's okay with Nick. He's been playing very well. Bridges guarded right now by Jack McVay. Boy, what a game he had against Purdue on Sunday. Hitting 4 of 6 from 3 and scoring a career-high 21 points. And Michigan State turns it over.
And coming off the bench to do it. Yeah. You know, he and Jariah Horn, who had 16, really nice-looking freshmen, they had 37 points off the bench in that win. And I also thought they did a really good job in that game of slowing down Biggie Swanigan, who's been absolutely incredible this year in the Big Ten.
not only obvious leading candidate for Big Ten Player of the Year, he's worthy for any consideration for the Wooden Award or any National Player of the Year, too. He's been spectacular. Good defensive play by Ward, and he hops a chair on his way out.
Yeah, here's the question. If you're following the Big Ten all year, all of a sudden, Ethan Happ has had an incredible year. And then you can't discount the fact that Melo Trimble, who a lot of people overrated when he was a freshman, I think are beginning to underrate him as a junior. He's on track to be the third leading scorer in the history of the University of Maryland. Think about that.
Webster has his shot blocked. I saw Maryland a couple of weeks ago. They've had a favorable schedule, but things have gone well for them. It's a strong team, and Michigan State pushes its lead out to 5 on the tip in from Bridges. He's now got 9.
Yeah, we've seen everything for Bridges. The 3, catching it in transition, shooting it with his right hand, and that move on the tip in. See all that pick and roll right now. Michigan State, pretty good job.
Watson misses badly. Here come the Spartans, and here's Winston, the young point guard, pulling up. You mentioned it, Fran, a little better on offense than Tum Tum there. Nairn's a terrific leader, great defender and all that, but Winston's a little better scorer.
Yeah, and I think Tom Izzo starts Tum Tum because he wants him to set the tone defensively. And so far, it's worked out very well.
Into the corner to McVeigh. Shimunga puts the shoulder down, cleared out a little space, and got the foul.
Yeah, I really like this kid. We had him at Under Armour camp, and he was really impressive and got a great motor.
Watson commits the foul out front after Winston faked him. It's his first.
Take a look at the big youngster. He played at the McCallie School in Springfield, Massachusetts. His high school teammate was? Brad Calipari. Freshman at Kentucky, John's son. Really good job right there using his body. He didn't run Ward over, but he cleared, as you said, a little space. But, for a freshman, Reese, he moves well. He's got some size.
Now, you mentioned John's son, Brad. Watch Brad in practice the other day. He scraps around, holds his own with those lottery picks. Big blue rolls out there, huh?
Nice
looking player.
His mom's unhappy this year about the lack of playing time.
Is she threatening a transfer for Brad or her?
No,
Brad will stay.
She's not going anywhere. Brad might leave. Ellen's staying put.
Oh yeah. Well, it was a terrific game. We got a chance to see with College Game Day last week, Kansas and Kentucky. Nairn's back in the game. The shot from the freshman Joshua Langford, the 3 right at the end of the shot clock, and Michigan State has the 8-point lead. And that's a good sign for the kid from Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, he's really starting to figure it out. Highly recruited, but got off to a slow start because of injuries. I love his toughness. I thought when he committed to Michigan State, it was a great choice because he's an Izzo kind of kid.
Webster. See some of that little lift that Ty has when he goes into the lane.
Well, both of these guards for Watson not on the floor now. They can score multiple ways. Webster really athletic.
Aaron Harris coming up the screen, but there's going to be a foul called.
Now you see some of this athleticism of Ty Webster. He's 6'4". When he came here, he was thought to be sort of a savior because of his international rep, but senior year, he's been outstanding, and that's a really nice post move for the youngster from Auckland, New Zealand, who, Reese, when he was 17 years old, played on the New Zealand national team, and when he was 19, he played against Team USA in that plethora of NBA players in the FIBA World Cup, so he's got a lot of experience.
Scoring average has steadily gone up. He's third in Big Ten in scoring right now. Last foul was on Matt Van Dyke, and he takes a seat. And Kyle Arns wearing 0 for the Spartans, getting some time. And Harris is going to be called for impeding the progress of McVeigh. First on him.
Aaron Harris, the transfer from West Virginia. He averaged 17 a game as a sophomore for Bob Huggins, and then decided to get closer to home and He wasn't really the style of defender that Hugs was looking for, but he certainly could put the ball in the basket.
A good slip by McVeigh and the follow in by Jacobson.
Yeah, no surprise. This young man is one of the better offensive rebounders in the Big Ten. Only a sophomore. I really like his motor, and his offense is improving.
Nifty feet by Ward, but he couldn't finish the shot. You know, this Michigan State team, seeing them give up that offensive rebound calls to mind. They're not what you typically see from Michigan State in terms of being a rebounding.
No, and a lot of that is because of the injuries. You know, Gavin Schilling is one of the better defensive players in the Big Ten, and Ben Carter, the transfer from UNLV, is going to miss the season. Both of them are out.
And Webster, the one he'd probably like to have back on the reach as the man went by. Michigan State has a 4-point lead. McVeigh couldn't get it to go, but Jacobson was there to clean it up.
Many tough games so far. What I love about him is not just the athleticism, but the skill level. He's shooting the three, shooting with both hands. You know what, Tom? The best compliment Tom Izzo could give Miles Bridges, he said, he is a blue-collar superstar. And he certainly is a member of the Flintstones. You think of all the great players that are coming out of that state.
Finished his high school career at Huntington Prep. He started it at Flint Southwestern Academy, which is Charlie Bell's alma mater.
Exactly.
You know, the thing about Bridges, you mentioned that he might well be the guy who enters the NBA draft, but earlier this year, Tom Izzo heard a voice, heard someone yell, "I love this place," and it was Bridges. He's enjoying the college experience for now. McVeigh misses the three for the second time, and now a little up and down. Here come the Spartans. Tom missed it. Ellis with a foul.
Oh, terrific speed by Tum there, and Alvin Ellis, the senior out of Chicago. That's the kind of effort he's given Tom Izzo this season. Team shorthanded, not quite as deep as they've been, but Ellis has been a nice factor for this Spartan coaching staff.
And willing to play anywhere on the floor, sometimes by necessity.
That's a great point. He's even played power forward this year.
He was shuffling those puppies, hoping to get set up for the shot there. Spartans turn it over instead as we head down toward the 6-minute mark here in the first half in Lincoln. Glad to have you with us. Big Ten on ESPN. Reese Davis, Fran Fraschilla with you. Watson. Do you like that little Euro step there?
Yeah.
Draw the foul.
And he rejected the screen again, so you got to force him to the screen. But watch this speed right here by Tum. Gets all the way to the rim, and then Ellis gets the cleanup, put back.
And Nairn just picks up his first foul. Fran, and he'll take a break. Fresh 30 after the foul. Huskers have it baseline out of bounds, and they'll toss it out front to Isaiah Roby, who's in the game.
Roby looks like he's 14 years old, but he's got a chance to be really good. He's about 30 pounds away from being a very solid Big Ten player.
And as Van Dyke and Chimanga were fighting for position, Van Dyke picks up his second foul.
And Matt Van Dyke came to Michigan State as a walk-on and probably expected to play a little two-guard, small forward at 6'5". But he's had to play an awful lot inside. And he's got a relentless motor.
He'll need it when he gets locked up on Chimanga because he's giving up half a foot and 55 pounds. He jumped out there and forced the turnover. There, good play by Matt defensively. So here's Winston.
Lots of pin downs here. Look for a jump shot.
And you expected a physical game as Evan Taylor's called for the foul. It's his second. They're making Pat Driscoll and the guys out there calling the game tonight. They're making sure no two hands. The people out front.
You know, when you're on the road in a league like this, you don't care how pretty the game is. You just want to come away with one more point. It's just so hard to win in places like this.
Bridges didn't have much rotation on that shot. Good feed from Webster. Shimunga got too far into the basket and couldn't get the shot up.
Nice anticipation by McQuaid.
Good catch by McQuaid to keep it from going out of bounds, too. On the pull up and another rebound for the big kid from Montreal. On the drive, Watson tucked that ball away like an old Nebraska fullback to protect and keep it from being knocked away, and a foul's called inside. Foul's called on Winston. That's his first. NBA Friday doubleheader starts with an old school rivalry. Isaiah Thomas and the Celtics. That still seems odd to a man my age. Hosting the Lakers. You expect to say Isaiah Thomas and the Pistons, don't you? 8 o'clock Eastern time, and as soon as that one's over, it'll be Portland for the Mavericks and the Trailblazers. NBA Countdown charged by Mountain Dew at 7. All of it streaming live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN. On the subject of the NBA, Nebraska tonight is retiring the number 10 of Tyronn Lue, who had a great career here as a guard. We expect that Cavaliers head coach will join us for a little while in the second half.
Outstanding. Yeah, he played here 3 years before leaving for the NBA, played 11 years, was a terrific assistant, elevated last year. NBA title, I'd say so far so good for Tyronn Lue.
And as a player, for those who might not remember him in college, he scored nearly 1,600 points here. Will be the fourth number to be raised to the rafters.
He played for a guy that had a lot of impact on my career, Danny Nee. I worked for Danny for 6 years. I was at Nebraska for 12 days.
You actually beat me to that. Nick Ward with the flush.
I was an assistant at Nebraska.
Fran lasted 12 days here among the children of the corn before they sent him on his way.
I was here and I went back to Ohio U. This kid's getting great post position. That is great post position. And let me tell you, Reese, when you watch young big guys the way he's improved even over the last 2 games, that's a double foul, which is unfortunate.
Nick Ward gets one, and Shimunga gets one. Jordy Shimunga, with 10 points, has already tied his career high here in the first half. And there's big Nick Ward going up and flushing. You know, the battle of the big fellas inside tonight. Made a difference in the game, but in the outcome anyway, we certainly probably wouldn't have been that much of a discrepancy or that much of a blowout.
And I thought Maryland going to Ohio State in a game that Ohio State had to have to go and win their 5th road game. And again, I talked about Melo Trim, a little zone right now, a little 1-3-1 zone. And Nebraska plays this about less than 5% of the time on the season. Let's see how the Spartans adjust to it.
Winston's going to shoot over the top of it. An offensive rebound for Ward, and he's cut from underneath. And that foul was called on Watson, and rightfully so, I think, though the faithful here is not going to like any foul on a home crowd. But this, just because you're higher than somebody and behind him doesn't mean you fouled him.
Exactly. Right? You saw Watson try to carve him out, but Ward's entitled to that space. Now, he's not a great foul shooter, but this kid has had a very good freshman year.
He missed the front end of the 1-and-1. To your point, he's shooting about 55% in the season. So Nebraska can draw closer as a big molar rattling pick set by Jacobson. He picks up his second foul. Now he has 2, and Shimunga's on the bench with 2.
Yeah, Mike Riley, the football coach, would have loved this one right here. Good solid screen, but the official thought he was moving into Aaron Harris. I love that they show the replays on the screen and the big board. I love it.
Absolutely.
You know what? And a lot of times the officials do get it wrong and place goes nuts.
Remember when they first started with replay and there was the feeling that you should never show what was being reviewed on a board for fear of riling up the fans? I think that era has passed us.
Oh, man, I love when the fans are riled up.
I do too. Webster's fouled on his way to the basket as Langford's getting ready to return from Michigan State.
Duke, Carolina next week. How about the news? Coach K's back
How about that?
Saturday for Pittsburgh. And It's interesting. Duke started to play a little bit better, Reese. As you know, you saw them Monday night. I think the best lineup they have is the small lineup with Emil Jefferson at the 5 and Tatum at the 4. You know, Kennard's playing like an All-American.
Well, that was the thing. Dan Dockich and I called the game between Notre Dame and Duke on Monday night, and wondering how you feel about this. We're both in agreement that most everything Duke does needs to run through Kennard and Allen, pretty much, and Tatum needs to play off of those guys. Would you be in agreement with
Absolutely.
that?
With Kennard, if all the
he's their best player.
He's their best player. He's an All-American candidate. Had the freshman not been hurt, he might still be coming off the bench because he's gotten that opportunity to become a great player this year.
And the other thing, Fran, sometimes you have a moment in a season, a good look inside the Ward, and that shot that Kennard hit against Wake Forest to win the game, the and one for Aaron Harris, the shot that Kennard hit to win the game against Wake Forest sometimes can be a galvanizing moment for a team that been a little fractured perhaps for a variety of issues.
Yep, I agree. And I think that I think what's happened with Duke, now that Coach K is coming back, they've galvanized. You said Wake Forest, now the win Monday. They've got a tough schedule in February with Carolina twice. And I think Jeff Capel, although they went 3-3, is handing back the team to Coach K at a really good time.
And a game before they get North Carolina.
Exactly.
A week from tonight. That foul on Jacobson as he went to the bench was his third, so now they have a couple of their big guys in a little bit of foul trouble. Jacobson with 3, Shimunga with 2, so Nick Fuller, a junior from Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Madison, checked into the game.
And he's only played 34 minutes all season.
Huskers looking to drive it against the Spartan defense. Jariah Horn looking for a little space, can't get the roll. Ward fighting for the rebound, and here come the Spartans. Good recovery by Nebraska to stop the drive, but they couldn't stop the break as Bridges continues his outstanding plays into double figures with 11. And he shows that variety in the game that you were talking about, Fran. We've seen the dunks, we've seen the threes, now we see the pull-up.
Let me tell you something. You hit a pull-up on the break in transition for a big guy, but he's 6'6". That's pretty hard. He's giving it the whole thing tonight.
Tim Miles seen his team slip behind by 8. Latest Miles Bridges basket for Michigan State doing it. So Nebraska trying to stay within good striking distance here before the half. We mentioned that the Huskers have been good at home. They've had some tough luck and some close losses. Michigan State, with the young teams, found a little difficulty on the road. Saving a few seconds is Todd Webster, though candidly I always wonder how much time that really saves. Just pick it up and go fast instead. Roby over Ward. Nick Ward fighting for it, and it'll be a jump ball and possession arrow. Keeps it with the Cornhuskers.
Well, remember this, Reese. The Husker team is playing without Ed Morrow, the sophomore, who is a really good player inside, a young man from Chicago who's sitting on the bench tonight. You see him in that sweatshirt with the big N, and they were 3-0 to start the Big Ten with him. Think about that. They go to Indiana, they win at Maryland, they beat Iowa at home, and he hasn't played since. And until they beat Purdue, they had not won a game without him.
He's averaging 10 and 8 on the season, and to your point, Fran, since he hurt that foot, their scoring average has gone down 7 points a game. The opponent's field goal percentage up a couple of points as well. His dad was a football player here. Played for Tom Osborne on the '94 National Championship team.
Yep, Mom played basketball too here, so he's a Husker legacy. But to your point, he gives you toughness, and they have missed that over 7 games.
Under a minute and a half to go here. Michigan State, an 8-point lead on the road. Harris has it knocked away. Tremendous hustle to get on the floor and grab it from Roby. Webster strong in, and the block is going to be called.
Really smart play by Webster because Harris was really never in legal guarding position. But I love this. Watch Roby go to the ground now. He pokes it loose, Webster. And then Roby, as long as he doesn't roll over, that's not a travel. And he takes that ball right to Harris before Harris can be established. That's a smart move. That's an international move right there, Reese. let me tutor you on international basketball.
You know, Webster, as you have alluded to, and I remember you talking to me about him a couple of years ago when he first arrived at Nebraska, has a tremendous reputation as an international player. But before this season, he had the good insight. He said, I've proven I'm a good international player. I want to prove I'm a good college player. And I think he's done that this year. He now has 9 points. That's right at half of his average, so he's on target. Nebraska's gotten itself to the free throw line. Michigan State only shot a couple of them. Did miss the front end of a 1-and-1. McQuaid lines it up, rattles it out.
That was a good look by Winston. He bypassed the next open man and sent it to the corner. And McQuaid, who was so hot at home against Michigan, hasn't been able to knock one down.
Fuller giving the Huskers some minutes. He rolled with the bucket. Webster didn't get it to him. Ty's cut off nicely by Winston. Fires up an air ball. Shot clock still rolling. Now a whistle blows inside.
Yeah, Arns, that ball was right in Arns' hands, and he fumbled it, and then he commits the foul.
It's Kyle Arns, a 6'5" kid who's getting a little run with some of the playing time.
Another 2-guard having to play power forward.
Hey, anything to get on the floor,
absolutely,
my friend, right?
Yep. He was an outstanding player in Ohio, right outside of Dayton. The Michigan State defense has been very solid, but for a couple of times, they've done a good job, I think, Reese, of keeping Webster and Watson out of the paint. And Shimanga with 2 fouls is no longer the offensive weapon that he was early in this half.
Just about a second or so difference, maybe 2, between the shot clock and game clock. So Michigan State with a 6-point lead can get this deep and perhaps take the last good shot of the first half. And Izzo will have a chance to reach deep into that playbook of his,
and it's a
which
big
is
one.
voluminous, to dial up something for Michigan State's final shot of the half.
You know, some guys run a motion offense. He's a set play guy. So my first question coming out is, where is Bridges? And he's inbounding the ball.
Winston will have a chance to create.
Nice.
They're running out for the screen. Winston turns it down.
He
got fouled and no call.
Smokes.
We've had some touch fouls called, and Winston just got drilled.
That was as much of a foul as any play I've seen this season. Now take a look. There's the drive, and he jumps in. He jumps in. See, the defender wasn't vertical. He jumped into the driver. And Pat Driscoll is saying verticality.
Straight up verticality, but you think he jumped forward into it.
I think he jumped forward.
I thought so too. Izzo will accept, if not be totally satisfied with the explanation. Michigan State up by 6 at the half. After these messages, we'll join Adnan Burke in the studio. teams, typically good passing teams, though they don't necessarily have the Denzel Valentine type guy they had a year ago. Bench points huge in favor of the Spartans in the first half, but now the second half is coming. Nebraska has won the last 3 meetings between these two teams, so they have some confidence against Michigan State. They have some confidence at home as well. They're going to have to deal with a little bit of foul trouble. One of their guys up front, Michael Jacobson, picked up 3 in the first half. Jordy Shimunga, who had 10 points, Fran said, able to tie a career high in the first half in scoring, also picked up a couple.
And it's a great point, Reese, because when I look at the stat sheet, I look at who's got 2s and 3s next to where they say personal fouls. And for Michigan State, Goins, Harris, and Van Dyke all have 2. And again, you're talking about a Michigan State team with not a lot of depth, particularly up front.
Goins scored the first couple of buckets of the game and picked up a couple fouls and sat out a good bit of the first half. He's back out there now in that mask. Broke his nose against Purdue, collision with his teammate, Matt McQuaid. Good pass from Bridges, and just like they started the first half, they started the second with a bucket from Goins.
Yeah, and it really started with Tum Tum Nairn, who got all the way to the basket, brought the defense to him, kicked it out to Bridges, who made a nice feed.
The house is full, but the house is largely silent. Webster's going to try to get him going. Webster now with a dozen.
And he made a great point about what Tim Miles told us today. We want this game in our building to get up and down and utilize the strength and quickness of those guards.
Well, the reason is they're the second lowest scoring team in the Big Ten, so they need it to be easy. If it gets to, well, Tim's one of the funniest guys you'll ever be around. He said, if it turns into half court, we're dead.
Yeah.
You know, so, but maybe not a big fella keeps scoring like that.
Yep. That's a young man that you're watching grow up before your eyes, and oh, that's a bunny.
Langford had the easy one, couldn't get it to fall, and now Nebraska is brought to within 1, perhaps even tie it if Webster can knock it down.
Well, all of a sudden with Shimunga inside, you have a presence, and you got a shooter in McVeigh who's starting the second half, and those guards.
Harris almost walked with it, or either didn't get caught, depending on your point of view. Now the shot clock is winding down to 5. Langford missed an easy one, made a hard one.
Well, I'll tell you what, you talk about a guy that's getting better and better in Big Ten play. It's Josh Langford. He hasn't had many scoring games, but the maturity, that's a nice drive. You know, one guy we didn't talk much about, Glenn Watson. You know, remember when I told you he went to St. Joe's in Westchester in Chicago?
Yep.
The home of Isaiah Thomas. No, not the Boston Celtics Isaiah Thomas. The Isaiah Thomas. And his high school coach, Gene Pingatore, is 4 wins away from 1,000. Think about that, 1,000 high school wins.
Now about this, Tara Vanderveer, Stanford has a chance to get 1,000 this week. And if not for one of the most ridiculous penalties in the history of penalties by the NCAA, which is vacating victories, which I'm not a fan of, if you couldn't tell, Jim Boeheim would be able to get 1,000 perhaps with the win this week.
Is that right?
So I believe that's right.
Wow.
Yeah. If not for the vacation. I think that's right. There's a note we got earlier. Shimunga's had a really nice night, but he couldn't finish it up there.
Tough play, tough pass.
Really just wanted the opportunity to state my case about not vacating wins. We all saw the games. We know who won. Now a little up and down from the Huskers, and the pull-up, and the bucket again from Watson. And so we didn't talk much about him in the first half, much more of this, and we'll talk plenty about him in the second. Miles exhorting Big Red Nation to get behind him. Children of the Corn rising up.
And this is the kind of start that they needed, because I thought the first half was a pretty slow pace for them. Oh, this kid.
That'll quiet him.
How about Miles Bridges? He's given us the whole repertoire tonight, inside and out. Reese, the way the NBA is right now, with versatility being at a premium, he's one of those guys. He's going to be able to play 3 different positions.
He's got 14 points here. What do you think his best one will be?
A small forward, but he can be a small ball 4-man.
Webster. Webster's had, I don't know if there's any such thing, he's had a relatively quiet 14. It's like an efficient 14. He scores when the opportunities present themselves. Goins working on Shimunga.
Let me ask you something. Where did all this offense come from?
But the offense from the big guys, couple of guys that typically don't score a lot. Shimanga's averaging less than 4 points a game. Same for Goins. Both of them have had impact. Good defense by Tum Tum. And it's going to go to Michigan State.
Tum Tum Nairn with the energy. He's joined at the hip with Tom Izzo, team's leader.
We saw just a moment ago Teron Liu get that number 10 retired here in Nebraska. The Cavaliers head coach going to join us here in Lincoln when you come back.
Seeing Coach Lee up there on the screen, so it was just a great feeling.
You think LeBron believed how good you were? Is he going to believe it now, how good you were at Nebraska? You're great in the pros, too.
No, I wasn't great in the pros. I was more of a...
Less than 11 years, man.
Well,
That's pretty good.
11 years, but I was a solid player who was a great team guy. In the college, setting, I was able to play my game and be more of a scorer, where in the NBA, I was more of a defender and just a great teammate.
You said, Ty, that you grew up here as a man. How do you mean that?
Well, when you leave your mom, you leave your family behind when you come to a college situation where now it's you by yourself and you have to fend for yourself and be an adult and be a man. And that's what it's all about. Coming to Nebraska, I was able to grow as a man and as a person and have to do it for myself, and had a lot of support, with Dennis LeBlanc was my guidance counselor, Coach Nee and Coach Williams, and a great team. So it was done by committee, but it gave me a chance to become a man of my own.
Do you see a difference now, Teron, and the younger guys that enter the league as opposed to guys that came into the league when you did?
Well, now younger guys, they have a lot more training facilities now. They have a lot more things to take care of their bodies. They're younger, but it's different because on the AAU circuit is a big thing now. When I was growing up, the AAU circuit wasn't as big. So, having all the facilities and all the extra equipment to get better. We had a Nike event this summer. We go in the back. They got luxury seats and declining seats and PlayStations and food and movies. They sitting back with their booster headphones and all this stuff. So it's a totally different game than when I came out, So a lot of things are given to the younger guys that we didn't get before when we played.
Do you have a favorite win here at Nebraska? Is there a night that you say that's one of the best nights of my career?
We had a chance to play against Iowa State when they had Dedrick Willoughby, Kelvin Cato, Kenny Pratt. I think they was ranked 7th in the nation, and we went to Iowa State, and we got a big win, and that was a big game for us, and it kind of turned our season around, and we ended up making an NCAA tournament.
You didn't have a weight.
Some hops. Look at the elevation.
You didn't have a weight program back then.
No weight program, no.
Well, Nebraska has one now, certainly, and we've seen this big fella here, Shimanga, play very well as he goes back to the free throw line. What do you think your Cornhuskers need to do here? Kind of surge back on top of Michigan State?
Oh, well, I just think, I think Webster and Watson, they got to be aggressive in the pick and roll game. They have some good steady bigs at Michigan State, so I think with Webster and, Watson being aggressive in the pick and roll game, attacking the basket and making plays from there. Watson, who's a really good scorer and had 35, I think, a couple weeks ago against Iowa, who had a big game. So just got to be more aggressive in the pick and roll game and have the big fella rolling down the middle.
Alvin Ellis knocked down the three. It's his second triple in the night, Fran, and Michigan State has its biggest lead of the evening.
Just like that, get into the paint, draw and kick.
Ty Webster's the guy that came here with a lot of accolades from New Zealand. He's been up and down throughout his career. This year he's having a really good season.
You take a look, Ty and the Cavaliers will be playing the next Saturday night, 8:30 Eastern Time. That's on NBA Saturday prime time. Coverage tips with NBA Countdown presented by Straight Talk Wireless at 8. It's always streaming on the ESPN app.
Any thoughts on a guy that comes from overseas? You played and coached with guys that are international players, and why there's an adjustment?
Well, it's an adjustment because, you have the language barrier sometimes,
right.
And then sometimes just trying to fit in. You're coming from somewhere where the culture is different, and now you come into a whole different country. It's different. So, having a chance to learn everyone else, they have to learn you, and it's tough. But, all the great ones, they adjust. And he's done a good job of adjusting this year. I think he feels more comfortable. He's playing great. and they rely on him to score the basketball and do some things defensively. So he's been really good.
Webster's aggression didn't pay off last time. The Nebraska fans didn't like that offensive foul called on Webster. He tried to drive. McQuaid drew it. Winston's going to knock down the three. And now Nebraska's in danger of letting this thing get away from them as the lead is up to 12. Cassius Winston now has 7.
And that platoon system at the point for Michigan State's been very good. Nairn, the defender, and Winston, the freshman, a good offensive player.
Jacobson's back in. He had those 3 fouls in the first half, and this time it is Jacobson who's fouled. Ellis grabbed him.
Ellis the third, his second personal foul. Team number 5 on the Spartans.
Ellis picking up his second.
Listen, if you can't find a backup point guard, are you going to come out of retirement?
I got to lose about 25 pounds first. But K-Fell was great for us last night.
Yeah.
You know, he's young and he's explosive. He did some good things last night. We just got to just continue to keep developing him.
Exactly.
He's going to be a good player. And, you know, when you're trying to win a championship on a championship level, you like to have veteran guards who's understood and has been there before. But he's going to be good for us.
What is it like to coach a team? You have the ultimate superstar in the league in LeBron, and the night after night, the syllable after syllable scrutiny of everything he does. What is it like for the head coach?
It's tough because I'm the one who has to deal with it. You know, answer all the questions every time something happens. And, you know, I hate being on TV. I hate that part of it, you know, the media part of it. But, I mean, it comes with the territory and it comes with the team. And you're coaching the best player in the world, it's going to happen. So I got to get used to it. And, you know, it's just something every single day. It's always something. So we're going to continue to get better, winning our last 3 out of 4. You know, defensively had a good stance last night, and Oklahoma City game had a good defensive stance. So we got to continue to keep getting better defensively.
Given that he's always under the scrutiny every single night, how do you go about coaching him in private when you do have to point out the mistakes he makes?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you definitely have to coach him, and that's what LeBron wants. He wants to be coached. And he wants the guys to tell him when he's wrong. But the biggest thing with LeBron is I've been around a lot of superstars with Kobe and Shaq and Jordan, and he's very coachable, and he's going to listen. And if you tell him something, he's going to try it once. If it don't work, then he might have something to say about it. But he's going to try anything once, and he's never going to try to show you up or embarrass you as a coach or anything like that. So, I mean, it's always great having a guy like that on your team.
Winston beats the shot clock, and Michigan State answered that 3-point play from Nebraska on the other end with another triple from Winston, his second in the last few minutes.
And a good example of how these Michigan State freshmen have begun to grow up now that they're more than halfway through the season. Bridges, Ward, Winston, Langford.
McVeigh, he rattles one in, and McVeigh had 4 of those triples against Purdue, now has 6 points.
Well, they trailed Purdue by about 9 and came back, and it was largely because of this Cornhusker crowd.
Now Winston taking a little time. You've heard this crowd get behind. This is a loyal bunch of fans here, Teron.
Oh, very loyal. And they're going to fight to the end, and that's what I like about it. And, you know, you always give you that extra juice and that extra punch. You know, even when you're not playing well, they're always behind you, and that's why I love playing here.
Teron, congratulations on having your number retired. It was a terrific ceremony. Thanks for spending some time with us. Good luck the rest of the NBA season.
Thank you for having me.
Opponent's possession. See if the Cats can take care of the ball. That's 8:15 Eastern time for the tip. Had a look there at Jack McVeigh, who scored the last 6 points for Nebraska. And Cassius Winston, who's got 10 for the night, 8 in this half, and he scored the last half dozen for Michigan State. So Michigan State's been able to answer the Nebraska charges here, friend.
Yes.
So got about 11 and a half to go, and Nebraska's going to need a little offensive firepower from McVeigh and some stops on the other end.
And Michigan State 5 of 7 behind the arc in the second half.
McVeigh. And I think they're going to get Goins for holding Jacobson, and that's going to be 3 on Kenny.
This kid, Jacobson, is a sophomore. He goes to the glass as well as anybody in this league. Take a look. He realizes that a shot taken from one side bounces off to the other about 70% of the time. Ball's in the air. It's exactly where he headed.
And Jacobson's going to shoot the 1-and-1, just about a 63% free throw shooter on the year.
Yeah, what you love about it, almost half of his rebounds are offensive rebounds this season.
Then Miles talking to us today about working with Jacobson on some footwork, invoked the name of Kiki Vandeweghe, and we've seen Michael try a couple of those moves tonight. Hasn't made the shots, but he's been really active on the glass.
He made a couple on Sunday against Purdue.
Now he's got the task of guarding Nick Ward, and a lot of contact between Ward and Jacobson. Ball thrown along the baseline, and the official indicating it went off the foot, and here comes Miles Bridges back into the lineup for the Spartans. Kyle Orange will have a seat.
Yeah, what you want to do with your top line guys when you have a short bench is pop them in and out, get them a blow, get them out, use the TV timeout for some extra time, and they're doing a nice job with that with Bridges.
Ward, oh, sweet, along the baseline and one.
Tom Izzo describes him as a baby Zach Randolph. Now, he's not quite at that level of player, but his technique inside, Reese, for a freshman, very, very solid. He's out of Gahanna, Ohio, and that's a place, Central Ohio, that's really producing a number of really good players.
Jacobson, has to go to the bench with his fourth foul after that with move, and Ward finishes off the three-point play. Michigan State's leads back to double figures.
Took his time on that post move, didn't he?
He's just, he really came into his own when Bridges missed those 7 games. He was very productive then. And Chimanga called for shuffling the feet inside. And Chimanga's got 4 turnovers, but he has been productive offensively and a force, and gives a good glimpse of what his future could be here in Lincoln.
And this is a young team.
Yeah.
They've got some guys sitting out, some high-level transfers. Copeland from Georgetown, James Palmer from Miami, Anton Gill missing the whole season.
Well, they thought they were going to have Andrew White this year, too.
Yeah.
But he went to Syracuse as a graduate transfer. Ellis lines it up, and Alvin has stepped up off the bench, knocked down another 3. He's got 11, and he's hit all 3 of his three-point attempts.
Well, think about this, Reese. We showed that stat. Michigan State assists on 69% of their field goals. The ball movement in the second half to get these kind of looks, outstanding.
Webster trying to answer, and he misses badly. And since Nebraska's starting to press just a little bit on the offensive end, Bridges, I think he was thinking about if he'd gotten an accurate pass, might have let that one fly, but pass around his knees.
Well, you know why? Because Tom Izzo's going to call another play that might work again. Might take a chance.
There's Ward. That time defended very well by Chimanga.
Yeah, he needed to go over the top instead of trying to go underneath.
That's really good defense by Winston, anticipating where Webster was going, cutting him off, and forcing the ball to get loose on the ground, and ultimately forcing the turnover.
Yeah, right here, good example. Watch him. See that? He steps in, and then how about Bridges? That's what you call a blue-collar superstar. You know, this kid, one of the highly rated players in the country coming into college, and Tom Izzo, you know what that is? That's Flint toughness right there. You know, that's the gritty toughness of a kid who grew up idolizing some of those great players that have played at Michigan State from the city of Flint. You know, his mentor growing up was Jeff Grayer, who was an outstanding player at Iowa State, also about a 9-year NBA player, and he's had good mentors. Mom's been a big inspiration in his life, and he chose a coach in Tom Izzo that he knew was going to push him.
Well, Jeff Grayer, I think Jeff Grayer was an Olympian too.
Yes, he was, 1988.
Chimanga had a good defensive play, and as Ward went up, he was hacked.
Not a bad foul, considering that Ward is not a great free throw shooter.
Jariah Horn gets the foul.
And don't mind that at all if you're Tim Miles.
Top. Yeah, if you're gonna foul him there, better make sure that dunk doesn't go through, right?
Absolutely.
You're gonna wind up on the dunk in the poster, and Ward, as you mentioned, a difficult free throw shooter, firing it right into the student section. They've got a great collection of big heads down there, and the there's a random Eli Manning in the crowd. Ken Bone
in his sport
fame.
coat. Yeah. Eli Manning in his sport coat. Donald Trump's in attendance.
I'm sure there's a reason for it. Crying Jordan is there. We've got Tim Miles' face on. There's an animal. A goat, I believe, for greatest of all time, I think is the idea. So the fans here getting into it, and they're hoping that over the last 850, the team can give them a little something more to cheer about.
Well, you got to rattle Michigan State in this half-court offense because they've really, really been efficient.
Ward running out, set the ball screen. This is one thing Michigan State worked on when they were going through their offense, is sprinting into the screens. Izzo stopped the walkthrough at one point.
Watch out!
Let them know vociferously that it was going to happen. Doesn't always have to be a dunk. He can do a little dipsy-do, Ken Bridges. He has 16. And as Franz mentioned a couple of times, he's scored in a variety of ways.
Absolutely. He's given us a little bit of everything tonight. Really skilled.
Watson fires, and Bridges the strong two-handed rebound. It's not always spectacular. Sometimes it's just fundamental, Fran.
Yep, absolutely. And how about, speaking of fundamentals, how about the way Cassius Winston said, I think I'm going to run some half-court offense. I think that's what my coach wants me to do. This young man, Tom Izzo said, might be the best passer he's had since Magic Johnson played at Michigan State. Think about that.
That's some pretty high praise. Ward misses. Although I know for a fact that the Michigan State players are fully aware of the legacy of Magic Johnson, as Taylor went in and scored. But when they were trying to snap that 3-game losing streak as they were getting ready for the Michigan game, some of the kids were saying, let's do it for all the players who came before us and set the foundation, like Kalen Lucas, and who, it seems like he just played there.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't go really far back with some of the younger generation players.
Well, think about this. They went 18 days without a win.
Yeah.
And that feels like 18 years in conference play.
How about Ward? How about that tip in from the big fella?
You talk about, that's one of the, do you get any credit for a tip in from 10 feet? Or just 2 points?
Well, just 2 points, but the admiration of your coach, the big left-hander. Now, look at Ward diving on the floor. They called an over and back violation on Nebraska, but the tremendous hustle from Michigan State's big man, Nick Ward. Ward gives you a little left-handed tip in. He is a lefty. But if that's not enough for you, and this ought to be, he followed it up with some floor burns, and Sparty's up by 2 touchdowns.
You mentioned started the game, and there you see Brian Gregory, see right over the Ward's shoulder. He's talking to former Michigan State assistant, now a consultant, Brian Gregory, former coach at Georgia Tech, who, by the way, Josh Pastner's done an incredible job. He really has. And remember, Georgia Tech finished 8-10 last year with 21 wins under Brian Gregory, and Josh Pastner has given Brian Gregory a lot of credit for the guys he left behind. He'll be a head coach again soon.
There are times when a guy in coaching, and you know this better than I, this from an observation standpoint, that just the fresh shot clock of a guy getting a different job, different surroundings, different recruiting situations, helps every party involved. And I think Josh is a great example of that.
Yeah.
It's time for a fresh shot clock for Memphis, and he's taking advantage of it, doing a great job at Georgia Tech.
And how about the job Rick Barnes is doing at
Absolutely.
Tennessee? Right?
Same deal. Shot clock right at 0, and look who knocked it down, Tum Tum. But they're going to have a look at it and see if he got it off in time. If he did, it's a 17-point lead.
Well, listen, Reese, the defense has been really good, but the story of the second half for Michigan State has been absolutely great ball movement and clutch shooting. There's Tum Tum there, young man from the Bahamas, who Tom Izzo says one of the best leaders he's ever had as his head coach.
Now let's have a look at this here if we can see.
Really
see
good.
The shot clock. There's at 2. It's tough to tell from that angle, but there's 1. It's good.
Yep.
They counted it, and with that 3, Michigan State has made its last 5 3-pointers. They are 7 of 9 from behind the arc in the half, and threatening to run away with this thing if if they haven't already.
Well, the ball movement's been exquisite. You know, we talked about the fact that they're #1 in the country in assists to field goals made, which sometimes means that they don't have anybody who can create on their own. But tonight, 13 to 27.
It's just good basketball.
Both teams.
Goins pulling it out.
No, they really have played well tonight.
Yeah, they really much needed road win, snapped a 3-game losing streak by beating their arch rival, and Ellis played well and traveled.
Tom Izzo said, you travel, take your time, don't rush.
And Alvin, who's really played well tonight, that's not the way you always like to go to the bench after that kind of play, but he's really had an impact on the game tonight.
He's been he's been a minor role player for this team in a couple of years. This year he's really become a guy that can hang his head high because of the way he's contributed to this team.
He's hit all 3 of his 3-pointers tonight. He's 4 out of 5 overall from the floor. Double-figure scoring night with 11. Now the Huskers need points, and they need them quickly. Langford, the freshman, with the rebound as we head toward 5 minutes to go. 17-point deficit for Nebraska.
Yeah, this is going to be the equivalent as they stay in that 1-3-1 zone of, Tom Izzo loves football. This is going to keep it on the ground, run some clock, and then see if you can get a good look at the end of the shot clock.
Tum Tum to create. Goes right by 2 Huskers, left it on the front of the rim, and then committed the foul, which is displeasing to one Mr. Izzo. Tonight at 10:30 Eastern Time on ESPN, we'll bring you the Chris Berman special. Boy, did Chris go all the way or what?
Oh, yeah.
Look back at Boomer's unbelievable career and the impact he had on sports and fans, pop culture. You can see it streaming live on the ESPN app and watch ESPN. You know, that as Tom explains to Tum Tum the error of his ways. That's a good thing. Chris Berman during his career was such a great friend to all of us and always kept in mind the joy that the fans have of watching the game.
Absolutely. Well, he was a fan and a knowledgeable one. I'm going to miss the Raiders. And nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
What is your favorite Boomerism? Would it be that? Would it be back, or he could go all the way?
I'm an old AFL guy, right? New York Jets, Oakland Raiders, Kansas City Chiefs. So I think the Raiders. You know, Al Davis, tit for tat right there. Couple threes.
That's not going to get the job done for Nebraska in the last 4 minutes of the game. Is Michigan State, which has lost 3 straight to the Huskers in this series. All 3 of the games decided by single digits. And as you said earlier, it wasn't necessarily about the whole revenge motif or turning things around like you might see in some series. For this young Michigan State team, it's about playing to a standard. And based on that stern look from the Hall of Famer, perhaps the standard's not always met.
He said it's not the schedule of the competition, but we went to Hawaii, we went to New York, then we went to the Bahamas, and the biggest regret he had is he didn't have enough time to coach his team through all those early season mistakes. And with the injuries, Schilling, Carter, this basketball team's getting better and better.
Well, we spent some time today talking to Ben Carter, who they're hoping will get another year to play. The transfer, and Gavin Schilling has been a contributor for them for the last several years. But as Izzo's teams typically do, he finds time to coach and finds time to make them better. On display tonight. 30 for 30 returns with This Was the XFL, presented by Many. Charlie Ebersol directed it. Looks at the XFL, Vince McMahon and Dick Ebersol of NBC created. Remember the XFL, all kinds of characters in that league. We saw in the promo earlier, He Hate Me. Do you remember He Hate Me's name?
No.
is Rod Smart.
Rod Smart, yeah.
If I gave you a quick quiz on how many career touchdowns he had in the NFL,
I would say Charlotte Panthers or Carolina Panthers.
He played with the Panthers for a little while. He had one return for a touchdown.
How about that? I know my favorite XFL player had to be Tommy Maddox from the LA Extreme.
Yeah.
Arguably the greatest player to ever play in the XFL. You know,
the old Steeler too.
Yep.
Came out
UCLA
early.
Bruin,
Yeah.
yep.
Bruin.
I was a New York, New Jersey Hitman fan myself.
Did you follow it closely?
Oh, of course. Oh, yeah.
I always looked at the big collisions and stuff.
Yeah.
Be a great 30 for 30s coming up after our game. You saw Tim Miles there. You were talking about the difficulty of Michigan State's schedule early on. A lot of the metrics, depending on which one you look at, has Nebraska's strength of schedule rated anywhere from 1 to 3.
Yes.
I mean, he's played a really difficult schedule. He's lost some close games. This one not particularly close tonight, but they played a very aggressive, ambitious slate too. That's part of the reason they're going to fall to a couple of games under 500.
And they've played now 7 games without Ed Morrow, who is a solid player for them, the sophomore from Chicago. They expect him back soon. He worked out a little bit yesterday. And, you know, Reese, having gone through years like this for Tim Miles and to a certain extent Tom Izzo, when you're in a league like this and you're in the middle of the pack, everything has to go right. You know, there's no margin for error. You can't have a guy miss some key time.
And look, don't forget this too. There weren't many expectations on this team. They were picked next to last in the Big Ten, and they've up to this point they've exceeded that. They started the night a 5-way tie for 6 as McVay picked up the offensive foul. And I want to finish up a story that we've alluded to a couple of times tonight. Reese Davis and former Nebraska assistant Fran Fraschilla with you here from Lincoln. But that situation for you you barely got here long enough to get any of the gear. You were here for 12 days.
No, I got a meal card for the football stadium, training table. Now, I work for Danny Nee, who was my mentor at Ohio U. He also coached Ty Lue, right? Mm-hmm. Ty raved about him. And Danny was the most important guy in my life as a coach. He really trained me. He came out to Nebraska. I was from Brooklyn. I just didn't know if I would fit out here. And I asked him if I could go back to Ohio, which I did. A year later, I was an assistant at Ohio State for Gary Williams. But I was here for 12 days. And, I had a courtesy car. I had a meal card. I did get a T-shirt.
Did you drive the car back to Ohio, or did you have to give that up?
Danny
took it away.
He made me walk back to Ohio. But he had such a huge, in all honesty, and I know he's probably watching because he's a high school coach now in Pittsburgh, and we know what Ty said about him. He was the biggest influence on me. And by the way, he did as good a job here at Nebraska, resurrecting Cornhusker basketball. Maybe the most important guy in Cornhusker basketball history, because he took him to the NCAA tournament a number of times. He had great players. He had Piakowski. He had Eric Strickland, who played in the NBA, Tyronn Lue. And I just didn't survive beyond 2 weeks. And every time I come out here, the media guys that are still here, they go, "Hey, you're back. Did you get a pension?"
Now, Danny probably doesn't want me to ask you this question.
He was not happy when I went back.
And he apparently there was a projectile involved when you did he throw something at you?
He wasn't happy when I told him I wanted to go back to Ohio. But I've told by far the most influential person I've ever worked for.
Statute limitations are good for you.
I tell everybody he hired me 5 times and he fired me 5 times, but he hired me 6 times, which is a good thing.
In coaching, I believe that's the definition of close friendship. If you hire somebody one more time, then you fire them. Saturday night, we'll start with the ACC, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Notre Dame and North Carolina. Irish all of a sudden are scuffling as their schedule's gotten a little tougher. Bastoria has been struggling with his shots. See if he can get it straightened out against the Tar Heels. They're playing well. And Kentucky takes on Florida, perhaps an undervalued Florida team. Kentucky's had some issues on the road at times. They won their games now, but in the SEC, but played a little bit closer. Now they're facing a team that really seems to be improving as the season goes along under Michael White.
Michael White's done a terrific job. Billy Donovan left him a nice nucleus. He's added to that. And the best compliment you can give Michael White is to say that he's another Billy Donovan. It's a great hire. out of Louisiana Tech. And let me go back to Carolina. They've had a couple of head-scratching losses, but when you watch them in person, Reese, you really do feel like they could win a national title. You know, with the guard play, Berry and Jackson. Pinson will be back hopefully soon.
And they've played much better when Theo's been available. He's some foot problems after coming back from injury at the start of the season. If I had to fill out a bracket right now, I think I'd probably put Carolina as a champion. I think. I mean, it always depends on matchups.
It does, but they're capable. By the way, did you see the Syracuse? You were traveling last night.
I was traveling last night.
That was one of the best games I've seen this year. John Gillen went for 40-plus. Now, he had that great game against Florida State on Saturday. In the history of Syracuse basketball, right? Think about the great players over the last 60 years. That has to be one of the couple best back-to-back performances in Syracuse basketball history from a fifth-year transfer from Colorado State. Unbelievable last night.
Well, I would venture to say it's the best performance ever in Syracuse history by a transfer from Colorado State.
That's for sure.
Dave Bing on line 2.
Yeah,
by the way.
Well, they were down by 15 late, and Jim Boeheim said afterwards, with 7 minutes to go, I was trying to think about what I was going to say when I came into the press conference, and I was going to say, well, once again, our defense wasn't very good.
Yeah.
And instead, it's just incredible.
Changed the script. You had 1:09 left to play here in Lincoln. Crowd starting to empty out a little bit. They've stayed behind their Huskers for a long time tonight, but Nebraska just unable to completely solve the Michigan State riddle, and when they did get close, Michigan State provided an answer. Most of it in the second half, Ram, was from torrid three-point shooting.
Absolutely, and they didn't turn it over. They moved it well. I thought Tom Izzo really platooned those 2 point guards. Both of them played well tonight. Cassius Winston is getting a lot of opportunity to grow up as a freshman.
You know, both of them did something that's not necessarily in the strong suit column. Tum Tum hit a 3 over in the corner, and Winston's had some good defensive plays. He was going for the highlight reel alley-oop to Bridges that time. It was defended well by the Huskers.
No, that's a good feeling for any coach. You go on the road, tough place. Tom Izzo told us today he thought this would be a really tough game for them. And again, Reese, in conference play, when you win on the road, it's such a great feeling.
Michigan State about to go to 6-4 in conference play. Got a little time.
Yeah, they don't play, and they got to go to Michigan next Tuesday, where they're going to complete the home and home. They've got Wisconsin coming in later in the month. We projected them to get to about 19 wins.
It's 18-19 safely in the field, which they are right now. I think sometimes it's easy. Call it a double dribble. It's easy sometimes to look at the overall record. Michigan State's 13-9 and project them as, perhaps in the bubble. And if you don't win games, you'll wind up there for sure. But Lenardi's got them projected as an 8 seed right now.
Well, remember how many games Miles Bridges missed.
Right.
I mean, they're a completely different team without this kid.
Speaking of Mr. Bridges, he didn't want to give Ty Webster any more points tonight. Decided that Webster didn't need a 20-point night against Michigan State, so he just swatted the shot away. And McQuaid will let the clock expire, and Michigan State comes on the road and beats Nebraska for the first time after losing the last 3. Our final score tonight, Michigan State beats Nebraska 72-61. For Fran Fraschilla and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Reese Davis. On tonight, Nick Ward and the Spartans took care of things with some help from Bridges. 30 for 30, XFL, presented by Mini, coming up.